Good morning, everybody. Well, I'm having my coffee, and I guess I'm going to put out this video for people to get a big picture of everything that's going on. All right, so in this audience, you have people that are in AMC, GameStop, Sundial, the GTI crowd, the COSM crowd, and a bunch of other ones all the way up to Carvana. Okay, now step away from the Wall Street for 2 seconds. Now, while everybody has their feelings on every stock, almost like a sports team, my team is better than your team. No, my team has a better quarterback. Yada yada yada. Okay, all these stocks, they lie on a system within the capital markets. Okay, backed by the banking system. Okay, so now, while you're looking at your stock, you got to go a little bit behind the scenes in order to understand something, because it led me to a big decision this morning going into today. Okay, now I've always talked about the chicken apocalypse coming, and a lot of people didn't believe what I was saying a year and a half ago when I said chicken at $900. Now you're seeing the effects of that with food prices, hyperinflation. You're seeing that. Or the new catchy one, tuna at 2,000. About 2 or 3 months ago, I had a long-time friend call me up from the old crew. And he told me there was going to be layoffs coming. And I'm like, yeah, of course it's going to be layoffs. Interest rates go up, the economy's down, it's going to be layoffs. And he was like, no, you don't understand. There's going to be seismic level layoffs that you've never seen before in your life. The kind of layoffs that led to the 1970s. And I was like, is that kind of possible? And I was like, nah, there's still some liquidity out there, whatever. And he told me there's going to be massive layoffs. So I got off the phone with him and I made a video early in the morning, just like this. And I warned people about the layoffs. And a lot of people were like, yeah. Well, months later, the layoffs are everywhere. Every company's doing it. Everybody from Google all the way down to the local mom and pop stores are doing mass layoffs. And it's funny because the government's talking about that there's so many jobs now, record jobs. The reality is you read more headlines on the layoffs and the record jobs. And if somebody that was a senior level manager making, let's say, 135 a year, gets a job at Walmart, they consider him employed, but they don't consider the wealth gap that he lost or the reality of the consumer base, what it lost. So neither here nor there on that. I warned about the hyperinflation. I warned about the food pricing. I also warned about the mass layoffs. Now comes my next warning. Within the next couple of months, and it's probably not gonna start in the United States, even though the United States kicked it off. The European banks, because they're structured a little bit different than ours, they're about to start going through bank failures. And the difference between the European banks and us is because here in the United States, I'm in DR, here in the United States, the banks all fall under, one system, FDIC, Treasury, yada, yada, yada. But something happened in November, that meeting that everybody saw in the FDIC where they were discussing the bail-ins, the fear, and they're trying to keep everything under control, and things ain't looking great. But that triggered something. It gave everybody a look behind the curtains on what's going on with the banking system. Now, in the European banking system, the steps to prepare for their banking system collapsing have already begun. So you take a look at that meeting in November, the FDIC meeting in November. Remember I did a video just long ago, it's probably still on this roster. I said the FDIC is probably $2 to $5 billion, that's their piggy bank. But the US banking system, our money in the bank is probably, I don't know. And at this point, it's just all of our savings, our checking accounts. What was it? Off the top of my head, probably like 20, 30 billion, something like that. I don't know. So it's impossible for FDIC to cover that. Same thing happens with the European banking system. It's impossible for them to insure that money. So what's at stake? What's at stake is they're going to have to take the money from us in order to bail out the banks, because they don't have the money to bail out the banks. So they're going to have to reappropriate funds, our funds, to save banks. Now, Europe is the one that's looking to do this more aggressively. So they're probably in bigger danger, which wouldn't shock me, but that's besides the point. This is not going to happen years from now. This is going to happen in a few months. That means a few weeks, which means that when that happens, they can't just do that and keep business as normal. It just doesn't happen that way. The way it's going to have to happen, they're going to have to shut down all money movement. Stock exchanges all around the world will have to shut down, because it's not possible. You can't have a system. You can't have a system failure and some type of like a reboot type setting, if it works, and have the markets all operating. That just won't happen. Okay, they need the market, capital markets and banking. You may not look at it in that capacity, because you put your couple of $1,000s into the stock market and whatever. But behind the scenes, the banks and let's just say Wall Street, or let's just say European stock exchanges, whatever, they work hand in hand together, because how do you think the money goes back and forth for settlement and moving money around? That's how it is. Or applying credit, to funds to do what they have to do. Banks are heavily involved in the market. The banks are the market. It's just the markets are broken into two parts: capital markets and banks. You may say, Lou, but why are you telling us all this? It's because we're literally I'm going to say I am on the last dance with Wall Street. I'm going to wrap up a couple of plays. The AMC play that's happening now, obviously, for me, it's just, the last round in a long fight. Because while Ape did kill the squeeze the last time, the reverse split is kind of a new twist that will get this thing running on two sides. I'm not saying MOAS. I'm not saying thousands. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that leading up to the reverse split, if they give themselves the vote, you're going to have stocks on both sides appreciate, because people are buying in. Okay? That's why the cost of borrow is heavier, yada, yada, yada. And that's why I talked about before. Nobody's really giving out those shares, lending them out, because there's a certain time when those shares, they have to come back. So that reverse split is going to be interesting. Plus, there's going to be more shares dropped on top. So after it's all done, after everything, you're going to have a run up again on the other side. So it's two parts. So I would like to make money on that play, especially considering it's going to be one of my last plays on the street. Now, that being said, moving forward, because you have An imminent banking failure coming to the United States and the European banking network. Since you're going to have that happen in both, and it's going to affect both markets, and it's going to affect people's bank accounts, which is also going to affect, corporate lending. It's just going to be a nightmare scenario. Within the next, I say right now, by probably March, my main focus is going to wind up being obviously into the XRP, the XLM, the Bitcoin, a couple of other coins, precious metals, and some other investments. Why? Because the second that this happens, it's going to be like lights out. It's going to be like 87 all over again. Something happens somewhere over there and it's just going to, bam, come fast. See, 2008 was different. I was involved in this nonsense in 2008. Like, at first, people thought, me and my people were crazy. Like, a lot of people. They thought Burry was crazy. They thought and it was like, they couldn't see the hottest product on Wall Street being the Titanic. But as it came closer and closer and closer, people, like that movie, The Big Short, it didn't show the real picture. Because as we came closer to, like Countrywide and all those, like starting to have their day of doom, it was evident around the country, the for sale signs, the contractors not working, the product ordering for home part, everything started to slow down. So it was no longer harder to be the one guy saying, yo, this is gonna collapse. This is gonna collapse, because people were seeing it. Even real estate brokers were seeing it. I still remember this one woman. She caught me by surprise. Knew her for a couple of days, whatever, and she was in the real estate business, and she was a skeptic of what I was saying. And then one day and I was in the car with her, she all of a sudden, she said, do I think there's another Great Depression coming? And this is before the 2008 collapse. And it caught me by surprise, because when other people see what you're talking about, like, oh my God, she got it. But there was a very weird question for somebody to ask me. And at that moment, I said, depends. Depends how they handle this. And I remember saying it back then, if the government provides aids, this is before the bailouts. This is literally about 9 months to a year before the bailout. I said, if the government gives aid to the bank and rescues the market and stuff like that, I said, it's going to feel great. It's going to feel like nothing, never, all this will be taken care of. Everybody will get new mortgages. Everything will be fine. I said, but in a couple of years, it's going to be horrible. And I'll talk about that in a different video. I said, what they should do is just let everything right now collapse. It'll be bad for like 3 or 4 years, but the nation is strong. The dollar's still strong. We can get through this in 3-4 years. They didn't do that. They did the opposite. They gave money to the banks, Wall Street, everything, and that led to 2012, which started the QE, Q1, Q2, Q Unlimited, which led to the massive PP funding that happened during the that nonsense. So there was nothing but bailouts. So we technically been bailing out 2008 since 2008, and it's only recently that we've stopped. That's why this imminent collapse is coming. So you have the situation now where the U.S. banks, you saw the meeting in November, they're afraid of what's coming. FDIC is no way going to be able to insure it. I proved those numbers. And now the ECB, European banks, they're preparing for seismic bank failures. Either they're preparing it for themselves, or they're looking at us and know that if we collapse, they're gonna collapse. I can't tell you how they're looking at the scenario. All I can tell you is that they're actually putting together the countermeasures for it. But the countermeasure is our money going to them. And if that happens, you can understand now, chicken at $900 is just the beginning of the nightmare. Tuna at $2,000 is just the beginning of the nightmare. Mass layoffs is just the beginning of the nightmare. When you have a situation like that, you will have, in my opinion, government failure, because government needs tax money, tax revenue. You ain't gonna get it. Because when things like that happen, there's a certain trust that's broken between the people and the government. It's already broken. By that point, it will be a point of no return in Europe and here. So the purpose of this video is for people to understand. I don't care what stock you're in. I hope you make $1 billion. I don't care what team you're rooting for. I hope you make $1 billion. I don't care what person on YouTube you listen to. I hope you make $1 billion. What I am doing now is, once again, I am warning people. I warned about the hyperinflation and interest rate hikes, and nobody believed me. I warned about the out-of-control food prices, and nobody believed me. I warned about the layoffs that were going to be staggering, and they're still ongoing. We haven't even seen the beginning of like the massive level ones. And it's still ongoing. And now I'm warning about the seismic bank failures that will lead into mass bail-ins like we've never seen before, because the money is going to be coming from us. So I am telling you now, run your plays, make your money, prepare your homes, do what you have to do, because on the other side of this, that's coming. So if you want to know why the naked shorting has been going crazy all through Wall Street, and a lot of the other things that we see, and it's how can this be possible? I'm going to tell you why. Because they don't care. They know the system is about to collapse. They know at the end of the day, this is all done. And there's no way of stopping it. There's no way of stopping it. You cannot prevent this. Unfortunately, this time around, everybody's going to ride it. There's no way around it, because the value of money itself is going to be affected. So, like I said, we're all in the stock market together. I told you what my focus is going to be going forward. I'm going to wrap up a couple of plays. I want to wrap up AMC, because at the end, it was AMC almost in my life. It was even bigger for me than the 2008 mortgage-backed security setup I was in. This was bigger than it. So I want to wrap it up, and once I wrap it up, a couple plays, whatever, but my focus is going to be different, because you're going to be seeing it. There's no way around it. You think that the European banking system could finance what's about to happen in Europe? Nah, and I know YouTube won't allow certain things to be said. Do you think we would even be engaged in that nightmare that's unfolding over there if our banking systems were okay? No. Let me tell you something. Take your Saturday to think about what has to be done. Take your Saturday to like plan out, like, if I don't have the stock market, what do I invest in? What is it going to grow my money? So what's going to protect my money? Because this is it. You're going to be seeing it. Credit card use is at all-time high. You know what that means? That's not people going on vacations. No, not at all. That means people are using their credit cards in order to survive the hyperinflation. But credit cards have limits, especially with the interest rates going up quarter point. Let me tell you something. All this has an expiration date. You understand? And I'll leave it like this. Don't forget, within a certain time by June, the digital dollar is going to start running live. I wonder why.